Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest saga surrounding the Raiders Stadium and whether they might stay in Oakland or jump to Las Vegas or go somewhere else. Who knows? I'm Steve Dempsey with the Bay Area News Group, and joining me today is Bay Area News Group Oakland reporter David DeBolt. David, thanks for joining us. And also joining us is sports franchise expert Andy Dolich, who's been affiliated with numerous Bay Area teams, but he was part of a group that brought the NBA Grizzlies from Vancouver to Memphis, so he's kind of familiar with a lot of the franchise movements in sports. Andy, thank you for joining us.
Always happy to be with you, especially if we're talking international sports moves.
Exactly. And also joining us is Las Vegas Sun reporter Jackie Valley. Jackie's been covering the movements going on in Las Vegas and the state toward bringing the Raiders there. Jackie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me as well.
Okay, so let's start with you, Jackie. In a matter of a week, the Nevada Legislature approved funding to help build a $1.9 billion stadium. And in a ceremony on Monday, Governor Brian Sandoval gave his stamp of approval. That's pretty fast movement there, Jackie.
It was a hectic week for sure. And, went Monday through Friday last week, the special legislative session, but we actually were recessed for Yom Kippur, so that made it even shorter. However, lawmakers worked into the early morning hours at least one night. So it was quite the week. I mean, I think to a certain degree it was a foregone conclusion that it would get the rubber stamp of approval. It was just a matter of corralling all the necessary votes and making sure that there wouldn't be any last minute surprises.
Can you talk about the deal a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, there wasn't a lot of room for negotiation on the public end. The developers, which is spearheaded by casino mogul Sheldon Adelson, have requested $750 million in public funding for the project. So supposedly Sheldon will put in $650 million, and then the football team would contribute an additional $500 million. So there really wasn't any wiggle room on that aspect of it. It was either deal or no deal with the 750. That will be financed by a 0.88 percentage point increase to the county hotel room tax. So the Clark County, which is where the Las Vegas Strip sits, will be taking out general obligation bonds to cover that for a 30-year time period. So those were sort of the provisions of the deal. There was no profit sharing worked in for the public, so that created some bit of controversy as well, but in the end, it didn't seem to make much difference with lawmakers who gave it approval. And the other thing about the deal was that it was packaged with another substantial Las Vegas Strip project, which is the renovation expansion of the Las Vegas Convention Center. And as you can imagine, a lot of our economic activity is driven by conventions coming to Las Vegas. So that was seen as like a key project that the region really couldn't do without to stay competitive. So the fact that they were bundled together, made it more of a foregone conclusion that lawmakers would vote yes, because voting no for that would not have a desired outcome as well. So a lot of people said, lawmakers were going to have to, hold their nose and vote yes, basically.
Well, yeah, but the speed of it, that was a lot of money going through, and the speed of this thing that it went through so fast. Have you seen anything like that before?
There have been a few special sessions over the last few years. Last December, there was one for electric car maker Faraday Future, and that was a 3-day special session. It wasn't a hike in any sort of tax increase. It was more like tax incentives in that bill. I didn't cover that one specifically. That one went through pretty fast. I think, opponents would argue that, yes, it was a week-long special session, but previous to that, it was like 10 months of this group, public body called the Southern Nevada Tourism Infrastructure Committee that was vetting it. So that group was formed by the governor last year, and then sort of the stadium project essentially took over that group once it was pitched in January. So it was 10 months of, some of the state officials looking at the deal and speaking with developers and hashing certain aspects out before forwarding that recommendation to the governor, leading to the special session. But yes, it was a pretty quick turnaround to have that amount of public funding be given the green light.
Now at the ceremony, you spoke with Mark Davis. What did he have to say?
That was interesting. First of all, lawmakers who voted yes were clamoring for selfies with Mark Davis, so we were all waiting until they got their camera opportunities over with. And then he actually was very hesitant to speculate on the Raiders' move. The question was posed, do you think there's growing support among NFL owners to vote yes for the relocation? And he said he wouldn't comment on that right now. I don't know whether that's a political move on his part, doesn't want to offend the owners by making assumptions. I'm not really sure. He was, headed on a plane that afternoon to Houston, which he acknowledged, and he said he was planning to simply update the NFL owners on where Nevada was with the stadium, which, as we all know, was the approval of this legislation. And then he did pivot to kind of addressing the stadium critics, and he said that, if and when they do come, they plan on being invested in the community and addressing some of the problems that were raised by critics. I'm assuming he was referring to, the education system out here and mental health services, that nature, that people were going to get shoved aside in this stadium project.
Okay.
That he wouldn't outright express a whole lot of confidence.
Okay. Well, David, let's turn to you. This kind of looks like a bad deal here for Oakland. Was there any kind of reaction or anything to this?
Here in Oakland, they don't seem too worried, actually. I talked to Mayor Libby Schaaf on Friday. They're calling it one step in a long process in Las Vegas, which means they still need like 24 of the owners to approve it. There's a lot of backdoor dealing going on, a lot of conversations I'm not privy to, but the Ronnie Lott group with Rodney Peete is working with county and city officials, as well as some investment groups, to make it work in Oakland. But at the end of the day, the mayor and county officials, still don't seem that worried about it. Whether or not they're just not showing all their cards yet, that's to be seen. But on Friday, they were just seeing it as a formality. They knew this was going to pass in Nevada, and they're trying to quietly work to get something done here in Oakland.
Should that give Oakland fans something to worry about, that Las Vegas presents this big deal, and yet Oakland is quiet?
I can't speak for fans. They've been through a move or two already. Sure, it's a lot of money. It's plenty to worry about. There's a big investment out there. But at the end of the day, again, there still needs to be more votes done, and that won't happen until at least March. The saga continues. This could go on until next year, the year after. Who knows at this point? They still have a 1-year lease of the Coliseum with 2 years to extend. As they could be playing years here still in Oakland. So there's plenty of time still for fans here in Oakland, So I wouldn't worry yet, but.
I think I'm not sure. I don't know if you're sure or not, but did Mark Davis, did he commit to 2 years at the Coliseum?
They currently have a 1-year lease, and they have the option to extend it for 2 years. So that being said, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. He did comment yesterday that he anticipates spending, the next 2 seasons in Oakland and bringing a championship to that city before any move.
Right. I guess the idea being they could be here for 3 more seasons as they build the a stadium wherever they're going to move, San Antonio, like Los Angeles. They're here for at least 1 year, possibly 3, as they work to build a stadium elsewhere.
Okay, you mentioned Libby Schaaf making comments. What about other Oakland officials? Because, ultimately, I think she's just like one voice on the city council. Anything else from other council people about this?
They're being mum on Friday, but they've been pretty. Like in previous conversations, they have said that they're working closely with Ronnie Lott. There's here in Oakland, there's a Joint Powers Authority. It's not to get too geeky, but it's a board between the county and the city which operates the Coliseum facilities, and they're the ones who are working with Ronnie Lott and the other investors, trying to figure out a way to keep them here.
Okay.
You guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's as I said. It's the JPA, the city and the county, and currently they're undergoing an appraisal of the Coliseum land. It's 120 acres, and they're getting an assessment for how much that property is worth, which could potentially mean they're going to sell it to an entity or sell a part of it to an entity like such as Ronnie Lott's group or another group. And they're waiting for that to come back. They're still a week or two out before the appraisal comes back. They're trying to evaluate how much the land is worth and move from there.
Are there any other land opportunities in Oakland that you know of that the Raiders could possibly look at for a location?
For a football stadium?
Yes.
It's complicated with there's baseball and football at the current site, right? So it's complicated. As far as the Raiders look at any other site in Oakland, it's Coliseum or bust.
Okay. Yeah. The way I see it, public funds really is a big factor here. Jackie, can you tell me how Nevada can move around public funds like they've done?
Well, in this case, it's really reliant on the hotel tax. And so I think the way they sold it to the public, however, I use that term loosely because I don't think average citizens are really in agreement with it, but officials sold it in terms of, it's really a tax on visitors and not residents. So that in Las Vegas hotels will be eating the extra dollars that will fund the building of the stadium. The downside is if we ever see another recession like we did a few years ago and tourist volume dips, that would leave local taxpayers on the hook for those general obligation bonds. So that created some controversy. There was a lot of critics who spoke out about that, but ultimately, the supporters won out.
Well, I just found it very interesting that, typically with public funds, they're earmarked for something. And here they just, and very swiftly, we're going to move this public funds over to a stadium.
Well, it's not, it's an increase in the room tax. So, it is new revenue coming in. You could make the argument that for something else like education, but it's not coming from necessarily an existing pot of money. It's like a percentage point increase to that tax. But you're right, it is a very large sum of money.
David, that would seem to me quite an advantage for Nevada over Oakland, maybe Alameda County, because from day one it's been like no public funds for a stadium here in the East Bay.
That's true. The city's not committed. The city and the county aren't committed to giving any public funds. The mayor's been very clear on that. The monies have to come privately, locally. And again, Sheldon Adelson is pumping in, his own millions and millions of dollars. We don't have a local investment group like that yet here in Oakland. But the city's been very clear from the get-go. There's going to be no public funds used. They're learning lessons from 1995 when the team moved back, and they're not committing any money.
I will add.
Go ahead.
I'll add that there is, unique pressure on lawmakers in Nevada because much of their campaign revenue comes from people in the gaming industry like Sheldon Adelson. So, they were a little bit more hard pressed to say no when they're reliant on the support of the gaming industry to win the election. That's in Nevada. That's how it goes. It's a situation. The politics of gaming are not very separate.
Hey, Andy, I'm not sure. Okay, I don't know if he's joining us or not. Sorry about that. So, Andy, are you with us? No, I guess not. So, Mark Davis says, I guess he won't leave Oakland without the approval from his fellow owners. Jackie and
Now, can you hear me now?
oh, yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea for a telephone commercial. Just shoot me.
Okay, Andy. Well, let me backtrack a little bit there. Andy, why don't you give your analysis of what's going on here in Vegas and in both in Oakland concerning the Raiders?
Well, not having been on the last few minutes of the conversation, I don't want to sound like a complete moron, so I take Jackie's position and Mr. DeBolt. But clearly, when you have a unique circumstance like has just occurred in Las Vegas, there's probably only two cities in North America that can move around money this quickly. One is Washington, D.C., and the other is Las Vegas, Nevada. So you have to look at $1.9 billion going into the coffers to build a new stadium. That's serious and should be taken seriously. You have no alternative that we've seen right now on a strategic long-term vision for Oakland. The Raiders of the Lost Park have been looking for years and years, and I just always envisioned Mark Davis with a fedora looking for new places for the silver and black to play. I think 3 or 4 of the most significant hurdles are the vote of Mark's NFL brethren. I know they're meeting, I think, in Houston, but I don't think anybody believes that a vote is going to come in the next 2 or 3 days. They've talked about after the first of the year. That is significant, especially when we think back to Carson and Inglewood and how the night before it looked like the Chargers and the Raiders, led by a number of very prestigious people, were going to move to Carson, and of course that didn't happen. That's number one. Number two, I have not seen any specific number on a relocation fee for the Raiders. And if you look at what Stan Kroenke paid, $550 million to relocate from St. Louis to Inglewood, and Mr. Foley has paid to have an expansion hockey team, which is pretty exciting, I think Jackie would agree, for Las Vegas, the first of the big 4 sports to have a season there next year. He paid $500 million. So why would anybody let Mark come for anything less than $500 million? Where's that money coming from? And then in the world of litigation, I think there's more than enough opportunity for lawyers to send their kids to college based upon whatever lawsuits may show themselves in Nevada and in Oakland for the Raiders to pay back the money. So those are some of the major hurdles that I think are in the way. I'm not sure what else you've talked about, but those are pretty significant.
Now, Andy, David mentioned that basically Oakland is being kind of quiet about what's going on. They pretty much thought it was a foregone conclusion that Nevada was going to come through with this funding. Should we be a little concerned about that here in Oakland?
Well, as we've talked about before, what we should be concerned about is right now, realistically, there are 3 professional sports teams playing in Oakland, and there's no other place that has one facility with 3 teams playing. The Warriors are leaving. Yes, there's still some litigation by the Mission Bay Alliance, but by 2019, I would expect them to break ground for their new Chase Arena probably sometime in the spring or the summer of next year. That means one of three is gone. The Raiders, if you believe Mark Davis, he believes they're gone to Las Vegas. And I think another very significant point here is that Mayor Schaaf is making her bet, pun intended, making her bet with the A's. 81 games, more revenue over a baseball season, deep pockets with John Fisher, development experience with Lou Wolf, but she can't publicly say that or push that all the time when you and I think Mr. DeBolt have talked about that there is a solution right there at 66th Avenue. Should Oakland be concerned? Absolutely, positively. The mayor has said we don't have $750 million. We never will have $750 million, which is factual. And all the rumors and conversations that are ongoing with Ronnie Lott or now Ed DeBartolo in the background, that isn't what Las Vegas has done, which is serious, big-time money, which goes to building a $1.9 billion stadium. That's the tip of the iceberg. What's underneath the water are all these other machinations that go on in building new facilities.
Okay, I'm going to throw this out to everyone here. Is it possible that Mark Davis is using what's going on in Las Vegas and Nevada, using that as leverage against Oakland and really putting the screws on, and he's just using Nevada at this point? I'll open up to anybody.
First.
Okay. Andy, you want to go first?
No, I said ladies first.
Oh, Jackie, go ahead.
That's an interesting question that's I know been tossed around here. Yesterday, he flatly denied that, said that he would never use Nevada as leverage, that they really want to come here. But, I think it remains to be seen what will happen. I mean, he's obviously working with some powerful people in Nevada, like Sheldon Adelson. So I don't know what their alliance is like, and how much he'd want to burn bridges, if that even matters.
David, what do you think?
I'll just say it's been done before. I mean, Los Angeles, San Antonio, he's been flirting with a lot of cities, and it hasn't worked. I mean, like, the city of Oakland has astonishingly said they're not giving him any money. So whatever bargaining chip he thinks he might have, it's just not going to work here in Oakland. It's going to take private investment and other means for there to be a stadium built here. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The horse race, the negotiation, that is not strategically going to work in Oakland. And if you look at what the Warriors are doing in Mission Bay, what the Giants did at AT&T, what Vivek Ranadive did up in Sacramento, you're not going to leverage Oakland into the kind of deal that's on the table in Las Vegas in any way, shape, or form. I actually believe, and have said it before, I believe that the NFL wants Mark Davis out as majority owner of the Raiders. They will keep pushing him back to Oakland as they did in Carson, and as I think they might do in Las Vegas, so that they can get somebody else at the helm of that team. That's all speculation on my part. And I also believe if you look at money, if one were to agree that there is going to be a relocation for the Raiders going from a larger market to a smaller market for several $100 million, the NFL has looked at Europe very last few years in the UK. Why not wait a few years, look at accepting Ming, and instead of you, Jackie, I've now deputized you as an NFL owner, okay? You're worth several $1 billion. Dave, same thing, 132nd, actually, at $500 million franchise in 3 or 4 years, legalize gaming for 3 or 4 per franchise. I think I know what I do. So before everybody party for there's major future of the league business later. Of course, as we've talked before, one of the great economic successes is the Jets and the Giants share Uno City.
Okay, I'm afraid we lost Andy on that.
And what happened?
Okay, so we lost. Andy. Hold on, Andy. You were breaking up pretty badly there. Well, I'm going to move on here. Okay, and so Mark Davis says that he's not going to leave Oakland without the approval from his fellow owners. This is to anybody here. Do you think he's going to get that support to move to Las Vegas? Jackie, you want to start?
Sure. I missed most of what Andy said because it was breaking up. So is that in response to something he said, or just?
No, it's a straight question.
Yeah, I mean that's what we've been hearing all along, is that they're waiting until January to get that approval. Like I said, I mean he was hesitant to even speculate yesterday, though. So if he's not speculating on whether the owners will even vote yes, I don't really expect him to speculate too far ahead about what might happen if they say no.
David, what do you think?
It's anybody's guess. I don't have sources that deep with NFL owners, but 3/4 vote is difficult no matter where it is. If it's school parcel tax for 2/3, it's 24 votes. He's gonna, and I mean, historically the Raiders aren't a very well liked franchise in the NFL. But I can't say. It's more of an Andy question, I think.
Okay.
Go ahead, Andy.
Andy, are you?
Yeah, I wish I was working. I take it you're not hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you for throwing it to a moot question to a mute person. But again, if you just look at the reality of Carson, a lot of people on the inside, and I'm not sitting here saying that I'm talking to NFL owners every day. That is not the fact. But it was clear, according to all the people, and Jackie lives in a city that people bet, and I don't know, what is the betting line, Jackie, on the Raiders relocating to Vegas by 2019? Is there a line? I'm seriously curious.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I'll have to ask my colleague who tracks all the betting lines, because that would be an excellent one to throw out there. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Already thought of that.
I'd like to see that. Maybe the first legalized gaming in the NFL. Where in the world are the Oakland Raiders?
Right.
But seriously, the vote, the owner's job is to increase the net value of his franchise. So they will look at all the indicators, and I'm sure it'll be a major factor of conversation in Houston at this owners meeting. But there's plenty more. Again, if you talk about my speculation about expansion, how much money that is worth, whether the league looks at legalized gaming in the future. Clearly, Nevada has some of the most stringent gaming circumstances, rules, regulations in the country. And so for an owner to speak publicly and say what he's going to do is not necessarily what the owner is going to do. And I believe that vote is essentially a secret vote and not a public vote in terms of approving or disapproving a relocation.
Okay, so bottom line, this will be our last question. Is this the end of the Raiders in Oakland?
I'm oldest. I have the most gray hair. I'll go first, okay?
Okay.
So I lived about 3 wood from the Raiders training facility when I lived in Alameda for a number of years. And I don't live there now, but I don't think you're going to see any moving vans at Harbor Bay Parkway, where the Raiders training facility and offices are, for a very long time. The amount of speculation about their move and the A's move, and I think the A's are linked. We haven't talked a lot about that in terms of what Oakland does. I see many more hurdles in front of the Raiders than a leaky defense. And you can win a bunch of hands in Vegas early, but you usually leave Vegas with your pockets turned inside out. And that's what I think is going to happen with the Raiders.
Okay, David, what do you think? Just your gut feeling.
I'm with Andy. I'm with Andy on that one. Too many hurdles. They still have a 1-year lease with 2-year extensions. It's going to be a long conversation. It's not going to end anytime soon. And I don't see him packing any bags or buying any homes in Las Vegas, next year or the year after.
All right, Jackie, what do you think?
That's a tough one. I think I'd have to agree with both of you as well. I think if it happens, it's way far off in the future. However, I will say that money talks, so it'll be interesting to see how much that plays a role in these conversations early next year.
Okay, well, I guess maybe sometime down the future we'll all come together again and see how this goes. So anyway, it is going to be interesting to see over the next few months or whatever what comes out of Oakland and what the Raiders decide to do and what happens with the NFL. So I appreciate everyone for joining us today. David DeBolt, thank you. Andy Dolich, thank you. And Jackie Valley from Las Vegas, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And for you viewers, thanks for tuning in.